Day, the oceans will rumble, the lands will quake, and a new predator will feature into the world of the hybrids. As you may know, I already submitted a hybrid into the Goji Center Hall of Great Hybrid War, as it's supposed to be based off the Cycrit, and was meant to actually think of the long-term effects of the island's ecosystem, by basically placing it on the island and starving the already existing population out while preventing new ones from existing by eating eggs and avoiding its own death was a pretty solid idea. Unfortunately, the hybrid war was meant to be 1v1, not long-term goal. Which, to be fair, is, I guess, kind of realistic, I suppose. But today I'm going to set my sights on a bigger prize. With hybridization, I am going to bring the Lagiacrus to life and make it as bioaccurate as possible. Now you may be thinking, this thing is a dragon, how do you make it bioaccurate? Well, you'll see by the end of this video. Thank you to Harris Viang, or however you say your name. Sorry if I botched it if you're watching this. And thanks to everyone who inspired me to make a bigger hybrid. Now first off, let's go over the different steps of what this thing is. Lagiacrus is a member of the Leviathan-class wyverns in the game known as Monster Hunter, the flagship of the 3rd generation. For those of you who don't know what a flagship means, basically it's the box art Pokemon on the Pokemon cover. Lagiacrus is considered to be an apex semi-aquatic coastal predator of warm oceanic seas. As you can see, the animal actually doesn't look half bad. Yes, it does take a little bit of fantasy element to its design, but enough of its design and ecology in-game are much more based upon real-life animals. One of the reasons why I like the game series so much. Some of the aspects on both this design and this actually show up in real life. The crocodile-esque head and tail, the large scales, even the cobra hood, which ironically kind of fits with this animal's overall design. However, if I was going to make something this big exist and make it accurate, I was going to need some very good geneticists. Which I managed to... Which, of course, Goji Center had a lot of. And considering they had so many, I guess they wouldn't mind if I liberated a couple. Okay, a dozen. Yeah, a dozen. Was it a dozen? Was it a dozen? Yeah, a dozen. Yeah, a dozen Goji Center scientists I liberated with better working conditions. And only have to work 4 hours a day. And give them free food. What? You really think I was just going to make them work to the bone? Come on, I'm not like that. And of course, our partnership of Power Balance the Kitsune, or as I like to say, Kitsuno Industries. Let's not do that. With, of course, Monster Forgers, who is also a huge help to the channel. Oh. Right. I can't find a picture. Well, I'll leave a link to his YouTube channel below, so in the description. So hopefully you guys can actually check him out. He's very helpful, and he really did help a lot in making this animal. Now, let's go over each of the different points that we need to make in order to make sure this animal is faithful to the creation, but still possibly bioaccurate. As you can see, the animal has the basic build of a long, slender body, something like a mustelid or a snake-like creature. Speaking of snakes, it has a cobra-like sail, frill on the sides, which is something that we'll be implementing. The horns, of course, while short and stubby, are still just as powerful. And the spikes on its back may or may not have to be removed. Overall, the animal is a solid design. A quadrupedal animal that requires itself to be on land and in water at times. The hardest part, however, is going to be this. The pseudo-fangs, or pseudo-fang fixture. As you can see, there are two kind of rows of teeth. The ones on the outside are a keratinous sheath, which in the games are called pseudo-fangs. Think of them like outer tusk-like... Think of them as keratin tusks, which protect the jaws and the teeth from too much damage. Ironically, this build actually is pretty plausible, with the outer pseudo-tusks basically being something akin to a biter and shearer, while the ones inside actually grip and shred. So not only does it add crunching power thanks to a crocodilian bite, you also have the animal's overall design mouth actually helping with securing the bite. Oops, sorry. Now, but here's the question. What do we use as the base for this hybrid? You're probably wondering that too, since there's no living animal that even looks similar to this. Well, you'd actually be surprised. Meet Nothosaurus giganteus, a creature that lived in the mid to late Triassic period, and of course is a very interesting animal to make a hybrid out of. If we want to keep up with the whole semi-aquatic nature as well as the overall design of the build, this would be the perfect animal to help it come to life. As you can tell, both designs have somewhat of a similar thing going on. Long head, long neck, long arms, round body, long streamlined tail. However, if we are to make this bioaccurate, some things will have to be removed and replaced in certain areas. Starting with that tail. The tail is the biggest problem, as you can see, considering the fact that while it is a decent build, this thing doesn't really help out with a lot. Sure, it's fine for a snake-like motion, but we need something kind of like how Goji Center described for the bioaccurate Elgren Maha, whatever the hell that thing was supposed to be, where it's basically a combination of both the fish and the snake-like movements. And luckily, we have just the... Oh, dang it, sorry. We have just the animal for that. Prognathodon giganteus. Now, for those who don't know, Prognathodon is a member of the Mosasaur species, if the body, didn't really give it away. As you can see, Prognathodon would be the perfect build for our animal. Not only that, but Prognathodon also brings something interesting. Now, I don't know if this is actually true or not, but considering the fact that these things are closely related to snakes, snakes often have inward-facing jaws, and a second row of teeth, too. So, would the Prognathodon have this sort of thing, too? Maybe. But if not, we can always, edit the genome in order to actually add the teeth. Now to add the overall size and give it a good growth spurt, we will be implementing Argentinosaurus. Okay, I know what you're thinking. But power, you stupid fox. Why on earth are you actually adding a terrestrial herbivore to the build and trying to make it big? I thought the idea was to make it bioaccurate. Well, I am. It's just not for the reasons you think. I'm not going after the creature's actual size here. What I'm going after is its bone structure. The animal's bone structure itself has a honeycomb-like structure inside the actual bones to allow the animal to actually move around with such heavy build. That way, the animal can actually hold on to its own for robust underwater combat while still being strong enough to carry its body on land if needed. Now, in order to help out with the actual swimming capacity and the ability to dive deep, we'll be utilizing a creature known as Cuvier's beaked whale. This animal actually holds the record for the longest breath hold of any animal. I don't know the record, but all I know is it's the best. It also brings a very flexible spine and very much appreciated flexible lungs, along with a flexible rib cage too, if this one also has it. This will allow our Lagiacrus clone to technically, and I do mean this, swim at a deeper depth and be able to withstand some of the pressures. Now we just have to add a common congruiter to actually build this in, and something to help out with the build. None other than the American alligator. The American alligator is a perfect idea to actually add to this collection. Not only does it help us give a more robust build to this creature, and also add some muscle attachments to the jawline and the neck, considering that thing there, the animal also gives us a perfect baseline for when we start working with the armor and the legs, along with a secret thing that will actually be brought up later on in the video. However, the alligator's outside-facing teeth are not really impressive enough to actually resemble that of the Lagiacrus. So, in order to circumcise this and to fill in the jaws on the outside, we have used the large tusk-like appearance of the Caprosuchus DNA. Not only does this animal add the tusk-like jaws for resemblance, the animal also brings in much more longer, much more sturdier legs. Now, while this animal does have a raised stance, as you can see in the hind limbs, we can fall back on the American alligator and probably even use gene editing like Goji Center did for the Indomuerta which is a scientific name I like to call it. Indomuertas vaganax stands for Unstoppable Death Machine, or Unstoppable Lord of Death. Quite fitting if I do say so myself. And of course we can also do the same thing as Samson did by raising the front limbs higher up, or just making the back limbs lower down a bit, to make sure that our animal doesn't get too cocky with its size in the weirdest places. However, the problem is that these aren't actually tusks. They're actual teeth. And while these tusks can grow pretty big, we need something different in order to make sure that it does act like an actual tusk-like structure. As you can see in this close-up, the creature has a full end line of teeth here. And of course, the creature's overall jaws have this keratinous sheath for a reason, protecting the jaws from too much stress, as well as making sure to grab and crunch anything. In order to make this animal technically more accurate to its source, while also making sure that it's perfectly congruent with our animal, we have used the common snapping turtle. The common snapping turtle really does help out with this build. This animal can also give us an overall shape of the overall body, but we're not using it for its armor, no, because that would just make this thing too stiff to swim and possibly even ruin the build. Instead, we'll be utilizing it for its overall shape and outside of its mouth. Because this will help with the visual accuracy, as well as aiding it in order to fuse with the Coprosuchus' shaped teeth. And with the secondary line of teeth provided by the prognathodon to actually line the inner part of the jaw, we can now fully replicate this animal's actual jawline. Next up, however, is going to be the wild card, which is something I'm hoping can actually help out. Next up, the Komodo dragon. While the hind limbs will remain something akin to that of a crocodilian, the front limbs will be much more robust, given the Komodo dragon is also an island specialist. Plus, Komodo dragons can swim, did you know that? But this isn't just the only other thing. The Komodo dragon has iron-enriched teeth, sensory organs, a very powerful immune system, as well as electric dampening scales. No, seriously, think about this for a second. If we want our animal to be much more capable of sustaining electric powers without shocking itself to death, like, everything in the hybrid war hall of shame, we would need this electric dampening to make sure it doesn't actually hurt itself. Because what's the point of it being able to use electricity if it can only use electricity once, am I right? There's also the reproductive factor, which, again, we can go into on a little bit of it later. And of course, the chainmail-like armor can also help protect it underneath on the belly. While it doesn't protect against all sharp intrusions, it should get the job done, especially in the areas where we need it. But to give the overall shape of the armor, we turn to Borealopelta. Okay, the Borealopelta. Now, granted, we're not using the whole set of armor, all right? It does have a very robust tail at the base, which can help out with this animal's congruity, since it's the tail of the prognathodon we're using. However, instead of having the large spikes on the back of the animal, which actually could probably cause drag, we shall actually be utilizing the spikes on the sides here. More rather, the ones along this part here. By using these spikes, this animal can not only have less drag, but also be able to help it with its turning radius, while also making sure that the body itself can actually turn with the flexible body it has. Plus, by just having this large white layer out on the outer body, and with how the osteoderms are shaped on the back, added with the alligator DNA, there's actually pretty good congruency here. However, did you know that alligators don't actually turn with their bodies? I mean, they do, but if they want to do a quick turn, what they do is they'll swipe their arm to the side and actually turn their body in the water like that. Lagiacrus actually does that in-game, which actually would correlate with our hybrid very well. Oh yeah, fun fact about Komodo dragon DNA, it was also chosen because apparently these things can wrestle. And yes, this animal can raise up, but it doesn't grapple. It just slams its body down. To replicate this and to not mess with any of the congruency... Oh crap, hold on. Let me get that back up. And to help with the visual design and accuracy of the creature's faithfulness, we will add the cobra. Okay, granted, we're not making this thing spit venom, okay? I'm just saying the venom thing is not needed. Since varanids and mosasaurs, which are related to monitor lizards, the family group of the varanids, are closely related to the cobra, and since the cobra's hood will actually be helping us make it more visually accurate, the cobra hood can actually help with another function, which we'll discuss in a bit. The cobra also has a very strong venom resistance, so if there's anything with a venomous bite out there that tries to take a bite out of my armored animal, even if they could take a chunk out of the damn thing, they would actually be very resistant. Same thing with the crocodilian DNA as well. However, we still need something to help out here. While we have the electrical dampeners and we have the hood, we now need the actual electricity, the oomph factor, the secret animal that will actually help us. Well, first off, why not add a little bit more flair? We'll actually add the horns on the back of the head, the 2 twin horns for extra intimidation, as well as something else. This, of course, is known by... Oh, wait. Ignore that. The cobra DNA will be utilized for housing the electric organs. Yes, this hood will be housing the electric organs. By making sure the hood is always... By sacrificing the ability to close the hood, the electric organs can actually be further away from the brainstem as well as the overall backbone, which houses the spinal cord. And, of course, the perfect animal to help with this and give us our actual electric ability? The torpedo ray. No, seriously, I'm not kidding. It may not be the electric eel, but the problem with the electric eel is that the thing is just too damn complex. The fish literally doesn't even have that same body type. Hell, the thing isn't even an electric eel. The electric eel isn't even an eel, it's a catfish. But the torpedo ray does have much more actually sensorized areas, especially since these electrical organs are in specific spots on the body, rather than actually all over it like the electric eel is. Also, it's just occurred to me, we just accept there are animals out here that are going to actually use actual electricity to attack, like live action Pokemon, and we just accept that as fact. I feel like my world is full of ignorance, and it frightens me. By placing at least 4 of these on each side of the hood of the cobra, we can actually manifest the idea of bringing this creature to life and utilizing its electrical capabilities. Of course, this doesn't mean that the electric ability is going to be utilized in combat, though. It's mostly for defense purposes, like creating a discharge to the water. But it would mostly work more with water than against it. So on land, it would rely upon its size, power, ambush tactics, and its own jaws in order to defend itself. Underwater would open up the access to how this creature is able to utilize its electricity, which again makes sense with the canon in game and in real life. Electricity is harder to conduct in air, which has little to no particles to actually connect to, and water, which has a lot of stuff to help. Turns out it's not the actual water that actually conducts electricity, it's the impurities and tiny minerals in the water that causes it. This is one of the reasons why the electric eel is so dangerous. It's because its environment allows it to conduct so much electricity. It is normally the current, not the voltage, that kills something. However, this animal was chosen specifically for the electric organs known as electrocytes, to at least help out with this animal's design. With everything combined, I now present to you meet Gaia, or Thealata Catactetus, or the Greek term, which it translates from Greek as the Ocean Conqueror, or Sea Conqueror, give or take. The project goal was to make a real-life Lagiacrus clone out of real animals, adding the Notosaur for the overall base, Prognathodon giganticus for the tail and scale enhancements for increased size and aquatic propulsion, the Argentinosaurus for a honeycomb bone structure for helping with weight support on land, Cuvier's beaked whale for the flexible spine and efficient lungs, the North American alligator for the armor on the back, for the overall arms and leg shape, the overall armor on its back, as well as a fast growth rate. The Caprosuchus for the tusk-like teeth for Lagiacrus jaw resemblance, and the beak-like mouth of the common snapping turtle for visual accuracy and high aggression. The Komodo dragon will have iron-enriched teeth, sensory organs, a strong immune system, a preference to eat just about anything, and with its scales having the electric dampening ability, can help our animal have the electric organs, as you can see visually here, to be capable of being put on this animal's here, on the sides of the thing. It probably won't have this many here, but it's still a pretty decent design, isn't it? The Boreolopelto will give the thick armor and spikes over the body, at least on the top to give it a visual aid. Plus, as you can see, this animal has the arms and long legs of the Caprosuchus, but the forearms of the Komodo dragon, giving it much more upper arm strength than lower. But don't get it twisted. These back legs are still quite strong. And as you can see, the armor is more on the sides rather than just on the back, making it much more capable of actually swimming along in the water. And with the tail of the Prognathodon helps it to propel itself through the water. There's also one other contributor I forgot to point in, and that's called a Saola for the horns. But to be fair with you, the reason why for the Saola horns is for both intimidation and something else. Like, okay, look, Monster Forgers, I know you're trying to help out with this, but like, the only reason why I add this is because I respect you too much to actually not do that. Yeah, apparently Monster Forgers added the horns for intimidation, which makes sense. It also gives visual accuracy. But the problem with that is that he also says that it's for an electrical arc conduction. Okay, I know that sounds weird. I know there's nothing in real life that does this, but hear me out. The physical attributes are basically as follows. Body structure for a crocodilian frame with prognathodon tail for aquatic movement. Electrically active hood enhanced with torpedo ray organs. Turtle, croc, and Komodo armor. Some scales conduct electricity. Snapper beak and Caprosuchus tusks for visual mimicry. Horns, electrically wired Saola horns, capable of stunning or arcing. I don't even know what arcing is. Insulation. Biological insulation prevents self-electrocution. And for respiration, whale lungs for long dives underwater. As an aggressive predator, this thing will have ambush tactics and aggressive territorial displays. Electrical posturing with flared hood and charged horns. Quick bursts and tactical retreats using tail propulsion in the water. Temporarily insulated during electrical discharge for self-protection, and strong visual and electrical displays to deter threats. Its best strengths are its powerful electric discharge for both offense and defense. Reinforced frame for heavy underwater combat. Muscular tail for powerful slants and direction changes. High resilience from scale armor and insulated tissues. Built-in protection against electrocution, and effective stealth and deep diving capabilities. Makes Gaia the ultimate semi-aquatic coastal predator and the best visual accuracy for this animal. There is one thing that's a little fantastical in this, and that's, again, the, Saola horns. Again, I only bring this up because I respect Monster Forgers because he's the one who added that in, but okay, you're not ready for this. Apparently, these horns can act as stun batons. Bio-stun batons. by charging the horns up with electricity. I personally didn't add that. I personally didn't want that. I would rather just have the horns be optional on the design then. But, like, I don't think that's actually plausible. I mean, it could. Totally. It totally could. I'm just not confident that it would. Alright? I'd rather be safe than sorry with this animal's design, okay? Now, for the dimensions. The animal will be anywhere between 8.8 tons to 9.2 tons, and will be anywhere between 38 to 46 feet long. Rather large for a quadruped like this size, but considering its body contributions and having it be able to move around on land, does help this animal overall. As an ambush predator that can hunt on both land and sea, let's put this on, say, Hawaii. And because most of the contributors are cold-blooded animals, this would mean that this creature would be somewhat of a semi-cold-blooded animal. That with the crocodilian's ability to control its metabolism, this animal can go through torpor during hard times. Another interesting fact to admit here is the fact that this animal can actually ambush things on land and use pursuit tactics whenever it causes for the initial lunge. But what is there to eat on land in Hawaii? Well, you'd be surprised. There's actually types of boar and axis deer, which are kind of Indian. Not feather. In the ocean, it would have full access to a bounty. Small to mid-sized sharks, large mid-sized octopi, and of course, a frequent favorite of this animal, sea lions. Yeah, seals get eaten by everything. I know they already get eaten by orcas and stuff, go figure. But would this animal be able to withstand those, by the way? Well, it depends. If the orcas decide this thing is a threat that must be neutralized, they could try and go after it. The only problem is, this animal is kind of well defended. Large, heavy tail for tail slaps, powerful jaws that actually both rip, grip, and shred. Horns to keep itself from defended if that bio-arc thing is, even without the bio-arc nonsense. The electrical organs all around the frill of the neck, keeping it from biting there. The armor underneath from the Komodo dragon, and the armor from both the alligator and Borealia pelta above. The claws of the Komodo dragon on the front feet. This animal is a walking defense mechanism, made to be a predator. The only idea I have is if the orcas somehow manage to grab all four limbs and pull at once. But this is still a high-risk, high-reward scenario, with the flexible neck being capable of reaching around and grabbing at the nearest orca tail, biting it clean off, and quite literally causing them to lose their numbers. So again, while this animal would be no match for a pod of orcas, the orcas would probably be better safe than sorry. Overall, I'm glad this animal now exists, and I'm really glad with how this hybrid turned out. But what if I told you we could push this animal even further? There is a subspecies in the game known as the abyssal Lagiacrus. This animal, believe it or not, is larger than the base species, being over 150 meters. Now, granted, our hybrid probably couldn't do that, but it could get big, thanks to the alligator DNA that allows it to get faster on a much more strong. It gets older, going through indeterminate growth. We could actually have individuals that could be born with the capacity to grow into between a 60 to 70 foot long animal and weighing in between 10 to 12 tons in the water. This would mean they would have to fully sacrifice their ability to walk on land, but this would make them true oceanic predators, allowing them to hunt down some other sharks, small whales and dolphins, sea lions, and other types of creatures. Who knows, maybe even small orcapods would be on the menu and be no match for this thing. It would fear no predator, for it would lack predation. And if this thing actually hunted on the surface of the water and caught a whiff of fish being hauled in boats, mankind would once finally be attacked by true sea serpents. But how exactly would this animal be able to increase in number, you may ask? There's only one. Remember the Komodo dragon? Yeah, there's a reason for that. Yeah, the reproductive organs were added from the Komodo dragon. Not like the whiptail lizard, which creates a literal literal clone of the animal. And for good reason. See, in order to reach the massive size like the abyssal, you need the male to do it, which I think is more common in males for reptiles to get bigger anyway. Take Gustav, for example, a giant Nile crocodile that grew almost to the dimensions of a saltwater croc. Basically, that's the same concept, just different animal. With its ability to deep-sea dive, this thing can hunt down for things like mid-sized squid, octopi, small to mid-tier sharks, dolphins, porpoises, and all sorts of manner of creatures. And if it's smart enough to follow humans and eat the food off the boats, this would come into conflict with humanity. Of course, that doesn't mean that this thing wouldn't just straight up eat them too. It's not that discriminate. But what if I told you this animal could possibly even get out of hand? Let's say for whatever reason, one individual managed to find itself on Isla Nublar or Sorna, going after the likes of, say, the Indom 2.0 on Nublar, Hank on Sorna, and of course Vex, if that makes sense. This animal, now that you see it for what it is a truly terrifying hybrid. Do you think it has a chance against any of these hybrids? Do you think this hybrid was well made and put together? Do you think Gaia actually deserves a place in the spot for the possible hybrid war? And will Goji Center actually acknowledge me now that I stole some of their scientists, liberated their scientists, and made a hybrid with them? The answer to all those is anyone's guess. But if you guys manage to share this with this video and possibly get me to, say, 15 likes, remember, small goals help you out better, I'm pretty sure you guys could share this video with Goji Center, as well as get my video now, which, of course, will have somebody react to it. Whether it be the guy who helped me out, Harris Yagal, or Riot. Oh man, Riot would love this video. Of course, the quality isn't as good, but that's because I'm only using my phone to help out with this process. So, my bad on that, G. But I'm really proud with how Gia came out. It took me a while, but I really do think, again, Monster Forgers with helping with the contributors and helping me bring this hybrid to life. And I'm really proud of myself for the drawing I did. Yeah, I drew this thing. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and like the video if you did. And always, this is Power Bounce. And may the wild be with you.